One man drills a powder hole, the color of a bruise. One man sounds the bugle, and the other one lights the fuse. Blow up. Pick and shovel it. Carry the earth away. Brains and brawn with hammers drawn, blasting through the day. The Men They Couldn't Hang, circa 2000 CE. Mining is an ancient profession. For as long as humanity has been aware of the valuable resources buried in layers of rock, we've been trying to dig them out. The oldest known human site, a hematite mine on Earth, has been dated to around 40,000 BCE. Since then, we've learned how to dig deeper and faster, seen entire industries collapse as their products become uneconomical to extract, and even developed a conscience about the effects that mining is having on our environment. Fast forward to the 34th century, while the basic aims remain the same, we now use advanced techniques and equipment to exploit the inexhaustible supply of riches found within the vast asteroid fields orbiting planets, moons, and stars throughout the galaxy. Let's go mining. Types of mining. There are two primary types of mining, and each requires different equipment and techniques. The first, which we've been able to do for many years, is laser mining. This requires the addition of at least one mining laser to your ship, which you fire at the surface of asteroids to carve off large numbers of small fragments of materials. This type of mining is as much about quantity as it is about quality, and typically requires more cargo space, but is less dependent on finding hotspots. The second type focuses on using new tools made available at the end of 3304 to get at specific deposits on the surface, just below the surface, or buried deep in the heart of the asteroid. For this article, we're going to focus on the latter. You're going to need a ship, and although it's possible to mine in any ship to an extent, to do it properly requires some specialization depending on what types of mining you want to do. More on this later. For starters, you're probably going to want a fuel scoop and a moderate jump range to be able to get out to the richest untouched resources, and also to transport the loot back to the station that's offering over the galactic average price. You'll probably want shields to protect against collisions with asteroids and also to defend your ship against pirates. And you're going to need enough cargo capacity to make the trip profitable. You should also fill about 70% of your cargo space with limpets available from the advanced maintenance section of the station interface, the function of which we'll cover later on. Deciding where to go mining may require some research. There are 4 types of asteroid ring: rocky, icy, metal-rich, and metallic, and each contains its own type of reward. For a long time, the process of laser mining has favored the latter, with its promise of the 3 Ps: painite, platinum, and palladium. These sell at a galactic average of tens of thousands per ton, while some prefer hunting in icy rings for rare but valuable low-temperature diamonds. However, new tools have given us access to far more valuable materials such as alexandrite, grandidierite, musgravite, and even the legendary void opals, all of which sell for hundreds of thousands of credits per ton. Before you decide which to do, it's well worth researching where to sell these commodities, since fluctuations in demand can sometimes lead to gold rushes, during which some markets may offer many times the galactic average. In addition to the basic types, each ringed body also has different qualities of reserve, ranging from depleted and low through common and major and up to the much prized pristine. The reserve rating broadly determines the quality and quantity of materials to be found within that body's rings. All the information on both the type of ring and quality of reserve can be found in the system map under the information about each individual ringed body. Choosing a location. Having decided on a system, the first thing you'll need to do when you arrive is bring up the system map. If the system has previously been explored, then it may already be available. Otherwise, you'll need to either visit the local nav beacon or else use the full spectrum scanner to reveal it. The FSS denotes ringed bodies with a slightly separated arrow pattern. Once you're in the system map, you'll be able to see which bodies have rings, the type of those rings. Some bodies have more than one ring, and the quality of the reserves combined therein. Pick a body that you like the look of and head towards it. Once you get close enough, you'll need to use another important module, the Detailed Surface Scanner. The DSS, used in analysis mode, allows you to fire probes into the rings in order to discover the location of hotspots and the kind of materials they're likely to contain. If the planet has multiple rings, you'll need to send a separate probe into each one. The description of these hotspots is an indication of the most significant material concentration in the area. You may find other materials too, and you may also find the same material outside of those hotspots. Once you've selected a hotspot, rather than flying right down to the navigation target at its center, try heading into the outer regions. This is because many other miners will be tempted to go for the center, and, at least in popular areas, you're likely to find that the better asteroids have already been mined. Reduce your speed to below 100 kilometers per second to avoid damaging your ship and drop down into the asteroid field itself. Pirates. Before we go any further, we should briefly mention piracy. When you first drop into an asteroid ring, the pirates may notice you and will drop by to scan your ship. Just sit tight and ignore them. At this point, all you're carrying is limpets, which they're not interested in. They're also impatient and will go elsewhere as soon as they realize you're not carrying anything of value. Once they've gone, you can start mining. If you're successful, then hopefully your ship is going to be full of extremely valuable cargo. Pirates will be interested in that. If you decide to take a break while mining, then it's probably a good idea to head out of the ring first. You don't want to wake up and find yourself surrounded. As for escaping from pirates, since your ship is outfitted for mining, it's unlikely you'll be up for a fight. Two main options are open to you. If you've finished mining and are on your way to sell your goods, then you should probably try to run as fast as possible. So choosing a fast ship with shields is a good idea. Or, if you've just found the mother lode asteroid and are reluctant to leave, then using silent running to avoid detection may help. If this is your preference, you should be carrying heatsink launchers to prolong the time you can stay hidden. Back to mining. Finding your asteroid. Once you're within the ring, you're going to need our next piece of specialized equipment, the pulse wave scanner. When activated, the PWS sounds out a wave through the asteroid field, which highlights asteroids containing higher concentrations of deposits we're interested in. Simplistically, the brighter the glow of an asteroid after the scan, the more interesting that asteroid will be. However, experience counts for a lot, especially when looking for the mother lode asteroids that can be cracked open. These asteroids are a particular size and shape depending on the ring type. They are described as popcorn-like and typically of medium size. They also give a particular response to the scan. Some miners describe an intense orange/reddish glow, while others talk about thick black lines and spots within the glow that become apparent after multiple pulses. To search an asteroid field, you want to keep flying toward the visible marker to avoid going in circles. The planet itself is usually best. While doing this, you should ping the PWS every few seconds and scan the field ahead for telltale signs of an especially valuable asteroid. Equipping an A-grade PWS will help as it has a greater range. It might also help to coast above the asteroid field, rather than flying through the heart of it, using flight assist off to point down at a 45-degree angle as you scan, so that you can survey a wider area of the field. Once you have a likely candidate, it's time for the next piece of specialized mining equipment, the Prospector Limpet. You remember that we filled our cargo hold with limpets, and that's because we're going to use the Prospector Limpet controller to fire limpets into candidate asteroids to find out exactly what they contain. When launched, the limpet will fly towards your chosen asteroid, and you should target the limpet as soon as it comes into view. Once attached to the asteroid, it will analyze the contents, give you a readout of the materials contained, and also highlight any specific deposits, which then appear as targets in your contacts panel. There are 3 types of deposit which an asteroid can contain, each with its own unique marker and each with its own visual cues on the surface of the asteroid itself. Over time, you can learn to recognize these markings, perhaps aided by the use of night vision, to the point where you won't even need prospector limpets when searching. That said, you should still fire one at the asteroid you're going to mine as it increases the yield. There are surface deposits, subsurface deposits, and fissures, into which we can place charges in order to crack the asteroid open and reveal further surface deposits on the exposed inner surfaces. To fully extract all the resources an asteroid has to offer, you should try to work through all 3 types of deposit in that order. However, in practice, many just go straight for the fissures since payoffs can be huge and completely overshadow those gained from the other 2. Getting your hands dirty. First, let's take the surface deposits. To get at these, you'll need an abrasion blaster. Target the deposit and then hold down the appropriate fire group trigger to fire a pulse of energy, which, when aimed correctly, will simply knock the deposit off the surface of the asteroid. It's worth noting that certain ships, like the Imperial Clipper, have widely separated hardpoints, which means you will need to dramatically overcompensate when aiming, especially if your ship is close to the asteroid. Second, we have subsurface deposits. To get at these, you'll need to use a subsurface displacement missile. Again, target the deposit and then fire a missile, making sure to keep the fire button held down. If your aim is true, the missile will hit the surface and then start drilling into the asteroid. If you miss, it will just bounce off. At this point, you'll see a display in the bottom left of your heads-up display, with a graph showing the density of the rock the drill is moving through, and also an indication below of approaching material deposits. Release the fire button when the drill reaches a deposit, and it will vent the material up and out of the asteroid. You can typically extract around 3 material fragments from each subsurface deposit before depleting it. Finally, there are fissures. These are rare, but with experience it's possible to find and work several fissured asteroids an hour. For these you'll need to use a seismic charge launcher. Fire a charge into a targeted fissure, holding down the fire button to increase the level of the charge before releasing it. Once the first charge is set, you'll then have a 120-second countdown before detonation, displayed in the top right HUD info panel, during which you can set other charges around the asteroid. The idea is to get the overall detonation yield into the middle blue band. If the yield is too low, the asteroid won't break. If the yield is too high, then you'll destroy both the asteroid itself and the materials contained within. Logic would suggest matching each charge to the strength of its fissure, shown on the left in the contacts panel, but it's often easier to get 1 or 2 high-strength charges into weak fissures to start with, in order to get the overall yield level up quickly, and then use weaker charges in stronger fissures to define the level. Also note that if you go over the optimum level, then you can retarget individual fissure charges and disarm them via the contacts panel. Once the charges are all set, retire to a safe distance and either wait for the countdown to finish or else detonate them manually via the same panel. If you've done it correctly, the asteroids will be blown apart, and once the dust has settled, you should find that the exposed inner surfaces of each piece show new surface deposits which can be knocked off with the abrasion blaster as before. Note that getting into the narrow spaces between the chunks in order to gain access to these new surface deposits may favor the use of a smaller, more maneuverable ship. Collecting and refining. As you carry out each of the processes described above, fragments of material will be knocked off the asteroid and float free in space around you. These need to be collected and refined. You could of course simply scoop up the fragments one by one with your ship, but it's far easier to use collector limpets. For these, you will need to equip another module, the Collector Limpet Controller. When fired, a Collector Limpet will either collect the individual fragment you have targeted, then expire, or, if you have nothing targeted when you deploy it, it will fly around collecting every fragment it can find until it is either destroyed in a collision with something or expires after a fixed period of time. Make sure the cargo hatch is open. The better the rating of the controller, the longer the limpets will last, and the higher the class of the controller, the more limpets it can handle simultaneously. Ideally, you want to have 4 or more limpets active at once, since this will greatly speed up the collection process. As the limpets deliver the fragments of material to your ship, they're placed into our final piece of mining equipment, the refinery. This module turns the raw fragments of worthless crude material into the marketable tons of raw commodity we're actually after. Since the refinery can only handle a limited number of different material types simultaneously via separate bins, and since asteroid mining can yield a wide variety of different materials, you'll want to buy a larger refinery with more bins to be able to process them all unless you want to constantly be venting unwanted materials into space. Note if there are materials you're especially not interested in collecting because they're effectively worthless and therefore wasting the time of both your collectors and your refinery, then you can add them to your ignore list by targeting them in the contacts panel and picking the appropriate option. Cashing in. You've found your asteroid ring, scanned, mined, and refined its resources until your cargo hold, once full of limpets, is now full of valuable commodities, and now you're ready to go and sell them. Don't forget the advice above about checking the markets, and indeed the gossip, when choosing where to sell, and also be on the lookout for the dreaded pirates. If you get interdicted on the way to the market, then submit immediately. Turn to face your attacker, boost past them, put full pips into shields, and jump out to another system as soon as your frameshift drive has cooled down. Sell the goods, and perhaps re-evaluate your loadout based on your experience. Did you have enough collector limpets? Was your ship maneuverable enough? Could you make do with smaller shields and instead fit a larger refinery? Then it's time to refill with limpets and head back out for another load. If you feel like the system you picked had lots more to offer, then just go back to it for more. Otherwise, pick somewhere new. The galaxy is your oyster, because guess what? You're a miner now.